Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. UNN, as we call ourselves, is the official news channel for CARE, and CARE stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. If you haven't heard of that yet, don't worry. Soon it will be everywhere, I promise you. And on our newscast, we discuss what we call the real news, because believe it or not, there are a lot of sources out there that claim that they are reporting real news, and maybe to them it is real. But the problem is there's so many of these hierarchies out there, right? And everybody thinks they're at the top and they're getting real information, but really it's all coming from the same source. Whether it's mainstream media or alternative media, it's all CIA information. But that's not where we get our information from. Our information comes from the Alpha system. And if you haven't heard of that before, you probably haven't, unless you watched our newscast. But we get our information straight from the people and events that are actually taking place, right? So if a meeting is going on, we can actually see inside that meeting and know exactly what people are saying. And it's incredible. So we share that information with you because we think you need to know. We are living in a time that is unparalleled, period. Not just in human history, but in history, period. Since God created this planet, this whole multiverse. And so this is really a lesson not just in news and what's happening right now, but sometimes when we're doing the news, I feel like it's a blend of, some sort of church sermon I may have sat in at some point. The news, politics, all this stuff is now coming together into one big story, and if you were just watching mainstream or even alternative media, you'd have no idea that this is going on. So we provide a different perspective because it's important that you guys know what's happening on this planet right now. It's never been done before. I don't think it'll ever be done again. It's truly amazing. And on this podcast, we talk about some of the stories that we cover on the news. If you want to find our newscast and get access to all of our information, not just our newscast, but other shows we produce, you can visit unitednetwork.tv. Our newscast comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we do have, I think it's a 2-hour period where the news is available for free, but any other time you do have to pay to watch it. So that's why we're doing this podcast. We believe the information has to get out there, but at the same time, we do have to pay our bills. And that's why we have the memberships. But on this show, we talk about local stories. And when I say local, we are a world newscast. So we cover everything in the world. So how do you cover local events if you focus on the whole world? Well, we do that through something called our field messengers. And they are citizen journalists that report on what's happening in their own community. So we've got a couple reports I'm going to tell you about today from them. And then we do have regional stories, world stories. And with that, we talk about a lot of different stories on the actual newscast. For this podcast, I like to break down a few stories that I think are worth taking an extra look at, maybe diving a little bit deeper to see what's beyond the headlines. So we've got a few stories there. And then we have our World Situation Report, which not just focuses on the world, but the entire universe. We call it the multiverse. So, it's all dimensions, all densities, and like I said, incredible things are happening. So we've got some really interesting things going on worldwide that Kim is going to talk to us in the World Situation Report today. I've got a couple sound bites for you guys. So as we're going through these stories, just know if this is your first time listening to the podcast and hearing about UNN, there's going to be some stuff that you might be shocked to hear. You've probably never heard this stuff before. Like I said, we do not get our content from the same places that everybody else gets their content from. And so this is definitely unique. Some of it's going to come to you as a shock. And some of it may even be kind of on that borderline of unbelievable. But I do encourage you to keep with this, keep listening to the show, because we're giving you the truth. I encourage you to think critically, ask questions, and do your research. So maybe take some notes as we're talking today, and maybe you can look up on the internet some stuff afterward. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. This is the rundown for Monday, September 25th, 2023. So we start off our newscast with our field messenger reports because they really are the heart and soul of what our newscast is about. We don't believe that you should have to have a national reporter come to your hometown to tell you what's happening in your hometown. You can look out your window, your door, your car, whatever the situation is, and see for yourself. And so we encourage people to tell us what's happening in their communities. And then we have a production team that puts the information together. So, we'll get video, we'll get some sound bites, we'll get maybe a voiceover. So the field messenger talking on camera, explaining some things. And then our production team puts it together. And we call these our field messenger reports. I've got two that I'm going to share with you today. Two were on the newscast. The first is from South Africa, one of our field messengers. His name is Greg, and he talks about load shedding. Now, in the U.S., this isn't a term that we hear a lot about, but load shedding, let me just kind of give you an overall definition. This is shutting down power on a rotating basis, basically because you don't have the means to keep it up for everybody all the time. So they call this load shedding. It's happening a lot in South Africa right now. And what Greg does is he gives us his personal view on what it's like when your power just goes out. I mean, I don't know about you, but when the power goes out at my house, I get kind of mad because I'm like, hey, I was right. And usually I'm on the computer. So I was right in the middle of doing something on the computer and the power just went out and I lost all my information. Well, people are having to deal with this on a daily basis in some places because the electrical grid is a mess. An absolute mess. And honestly, we need to be getting away from traditional electricity. Most people listening to the show know that. There are many other ways to generate power, very natural ways of generating power that have been kept from us for many, many years. Things that don't hurt us, things that don't have to go through the government. So the government, gets a kickback. We don't need them. We are fully capable, even as a human being. This may be a little bit out there for some people, but even as a human being, you could power your own home just by being a human and tapping into the power within yourself. Okay? So we certainly don't need these electrical grids all over the planet causing God knows what kind of harm to our bodies. But that's the situation. That's the reality that many people live in right now. And to Greg's point, he says when the power goes out, it's not just about losing power because, if the power goes out here at my house, I can still have running water. Well, depending on how things are set up, you may have pumps that handle the water, and those are run on electricity. So he was telling us that he loses access to a bunch of different things when the power goes out, including water. Now, that's a big, big deal, right? And obviously, we need to have better solutions to this. But if you want to check out that report, it's really interesting. When he starts the report, the lights are on and everything, and then it literally goes out in the middle of the report. Our second field messenger report is about a housing crisis that's going on in Australia. And our field messenger for this is Sue. She does a really good job. She's telling us about how high prices, cost of living, and things like that are forcing people that would normally have a home of some sort, but now they are living in buses, they're living in tents, some are living in tiny homes. There's nothing wrong with a tiny home. In fact, I've seen many tiny homes that are more beautiful than some apartments that I've seen, right? But the problem is they don't really have a place to go, even though they are, camping out or whatever. The land that they're on, now the city or the country is being very, they're kind of banning them from, just trying to be on public land or whatever, even private land. In fact, Sue interviews someone who has some land that started to let people stay on her property. And now the government is going after her for letting people stay on her property. So, this is really getting out of hand, and I'm really glad that Sue brought this to our attention because obviously people need to have good housing, affordable housing. And, not on some government program, which, never worked in the past, but true housing that works. So that's our second field messenger report. If you guys are interested in becoming a field messenger, because it is so important, really, it is the lifeblood of what our whole news program is based on. It's your stories, okay? You guys are the news now. And if you want more information on how to become a field messenger, you can head on over to the website unitednetwork.news. There is a section on the top, like the main navigation, that says become a field messenger. And there's a lot of stuff that you can take a look at, sample reports, and you can also join our Telegram group, which I'll tell you about at the end of today's episode. And you can get help from our production team as you're starting to piece everything together. Now let's talk about some of our world stories. And in the news today, we actually added some new graphics. We're dividing the stories up according to regions. So, like I said, we're a world newscast. We represent people all over the world, and we talk about stories from all over the world. And actually, today's stories that we're going to talk about are from different sections of the world. So let's start with our first one. This is about something here in the U.S. that we've heard a lot about, and it's now getting some attention in the EU. It is regarding a herbicide called glyphosate. And we've been dealing with this for a while in the U.S. You guys have heard like all of the lawsuits and everything around the product Roundup. Okay, it's a weed killer. We heard all about it here in the U.S. and news stories all over the place. It feels like it was a while ago now. Well, Germany is now pushing for a ban on glyphosate. And there's going to be a vote coming up amongst EU members on October 13th. But I did a little bit of research on this because I'm like, common sense would tell you that if another country had this big issue with a product, that other countries would look at it at the same time and go, yeah, the U.S. is having an issue with this. Maybe we should look into this. It's always so puzzling to me. So I decided to do a little bit of research. This is actually extra stuff that we didn't talk about in the news, but I wanted to give you guys because that should be a red flag. Okay, why is one country having to deal with this? And then years later, another one finally gets on board. It's almost like they're trying to contain it in one country. And the other place is, it's fine until it becomes an issue there, and then they'll deal with it at that time. So here's what I found out. This is really interesting. First of all, glyphosate is toxic. It is toxic to most plants and grasses. Now, I'm going to throw out a name here that many of you that watch our news have heard of before. Monsanto. Monsanto grows plants. Do they still do it? They might be defunct now. I saw some information online saying they were defunct. But basically, instead of small farmers growing stuff and selling it locally, Monsanto got these huge contracts to produce tons of food for nefarious purposes because they're throwing chemicals, including Roundup, I'm sure, all over this food that's going to make it to different grocery stores. So Monsanto developed Roundup initially. So big red flag right there, okay? And here's this is just incredible. They also developed plant seeds that were genetically modified to resist Roundup. Okay, so this is a classic case of deep state because it is deep state people behind this. The deep state causing the problem and then having a solution to the problem to make money. And that's exactly what happened with Roundup. They had these genetically modified plant seeds, and this is how sales for Roundup skyrocketed. But then we started finding out that Roundup causes cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then Monsanto had to pay out literally over 100,000 lawsuits. I read online that it was equal to $11 billion, and that was just of May in 2022. But here's the interesting thing, and this is another thing the deep state does all the time. They will, if one company has kind of been tarnished, they basically transfer assets over to another company. And it's like, oh, yeah, we got rid of that company. Now it's made by this company and everything's all great. No, not so much. Okay. So in 2018, Roundup was purchased by Bayer. Like the little aspirin pills and stuff that people take. Bayer purchases Roundup. And then they said by 2023, which is this year, that they're going to replace that ingredient. Do I believe that? No, I don't believe that at all. But I did find this interesting stat that said, according to the CDC, which again is a government agency, don't let them fool you. They are a government agency. They say 80% of Americans may have traces of Roundup in their urine because it's going out through the plants. All right. It's going out through your food supply. And who knows, if it's in people's grass, if all these people are using it or were using it, you're getting it on your skin. Maybe you're transferring it to someone else or someone else's yard. Who knows how this stuff works? So that's our first story, is that the EU is finally trying to ban this disgusting stuff. But it's just amazing to me how long this can stay around, just kind of in the court system, and they'll just pay out some money and, because people got cancer. Like, these people are truly evil people. Let's hope it's going away. The second story is about bank withdrawals in Hong Kong. So citizens are having a hard time withdrawing money from state-owned banks. So that China is a communist country. As a communist country, the government pretty much takes ownership of everything. Even in a corporation setting, they will own 50% of the corporation. We've been saying for a while now that governments are going to go down, and China may just be at the top of that list. They are completely broke. So if the government is broke, the people, since the government is involved in all of their business, even their corporations, the people are going to start to see that. And that's what you need to see in these stories. Honestly, it's incredible that these stories are even making it out of the country because China has such a control over their media. You've seen probably the images of, them scanning people before they go into buildings and all this. This is social crediting at its finest. And so they have had such a clampdown on anything getting out. The fact that we're hearing stuff like this and we're hearing about runs on the banks is a sign that they cannot contain this anymore. The government is going down and the people they want their money. They know that the government's coming after their money next. And from the bank's perspective, what the banks are doing now, these Hong Kong banks, state-owned banks, are creating these strict rules regarding withdrawals. So it could take up to 5 hours to even complete a withdrawal. They're basically putting these barriers in place because they're trying to manage the outflow of money. And the only reason you do that is because you think there could be a possible run on the banks. And our third story, our final story in world news, is about the New York Times. Love them or hate them, they have just shown a bunch of cards. They've shown their hand, perhaps for the last time, because if you aren't already aware, the large media organizations, at least in the U.S., and I'm sure this is the case in other countries, get a ton of money from the federal government. This is not publicized, and you'd probably be hard to find any kind of track record of receipts and things like that, but this is very well known. And they usually do this, at least for TV. They do this for airtime. You know how a president will break into whatever, say his silly announcement or whatever, because they're just puppets too. Well, in order to have these moments where they can break into programming, they pay these news groups, primarily television, the ability to do that. Large amounts of money. And I'm sure they do something similar for newspapers too. Like if it's a big story or whatever, we need to get this on the front page, kind of thing. Well, if the government is running out of money or is out of money, which they are, then they can't really pay, right? They can't pay these media groups. And so you're going to start to see a lot of media start to fold. And I'm talking about the big groups that are getting all the money from the government on top. The smaller guys are reliant more on advertising. So as long as the economy is okay, then they should be okay. Just a little bit of background info for you. This story is actually about a web crawler called IA Archiver. The New York Times has blocked it. Now, this is the main, what would I call it? Tool, let's just call it a tool that is used by the Wayback Machine. Have you guys heard of that? So the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, if you want to find information that has already been deleted from a website, or maybe the whole website is gone, you can use the Wayback Machine. It's kind of records it, essentially, okay? So if you want to go back to an old page that no longer exists or an article or whatever, you can use the Wayback Machine. And the Wayback Machine uses this tool called the IA Archiver. Well, the New York Times doesn't like us going back, apparently, and looking at older articles. Because what if they decided they wanted to change something and not tell anyone about it? I mean, it's not like we're all just staring at the New York Times, and an article just going, oh, I wonder if they're going to change this or they're going to change this. Like, we have our own lives to lead, right? But we could use tools like the Wayback Machine to fact check and see, did their stance on something change? Are they trying to pull the wool over our eyes? So removing this tool, this IA Archiver, makes it harder to uncover changes to articles if they didn't document it in some way. What journalists are supposed to do is they are supposed to tell you that they have made a change to the story. Usually it's at the bottom, and they should tell you what that change is. But if it's not in their best interest, if they think that, this is survival of the fittest right now, if they think that you finding out something is going to negatively impact them, maybe you lose trust in them. Maybe they lose advertisers. I mean, who knows? This is about them surviving right now. But you have to wonder, okay, so a newspaper doesn't want you to go look at their old articles and be able to tell if something's been corrected. What are they trying to hide? I mean, we could be here all day answering that question. That was rhetorical. I mean, just think about all the COVID stuff and everything they said about COVID. They have to know that stuff is coming out. Now, what I find is very interesting about this is that the New York Times historically is known as the paper of record. Have you guys ever heard that? So think of this as like a time capsule or something, right? If someone wanted to know what was going on in whatever year since the New York Times had been created, they could go back to anything with the New York Times and find out the truth, right? It's the paper of record, which is such a joke because it is a deep state tool from the first page to the last page. But this is programming. This is their little slogan, and we're supposed to believe it. Oh, well, that's the paper of record. Now, the paper of record doesn't want you to go back. This is the irony. Doesn't want you to go back and see what they said. Well, they want you to go back, but they want you to see the new version, and the words, that they're trying to cover up. They don't want you to know what they originally said. So, I mean, this is all just so ridiculous, but we're going to see more and more of this as governments crumble, large corporations start to go down, the media will start to go down as well. And right now, they're just trying to save themselves. All right, now it's time for our World Situation Report. And of course, this is with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. Kim comes on the news and shares with us all the different operations and things that she's working on. So Kim has a very special job. And this is not a new job. People and other beings have had this position on our planet. But her position, I think, is really unique now because we are now making this huge transition from a dark age or period of time into a light period. And it's even more than a period. It is completely transitioning into a light system. It will never go back to dark. For those of you who don't know, we have been living for thousands and thousands of years in a very, very dark period where evil has just reigned. And it was supposed to be even. It was supposed to be balanced, where evil, had some leeway. The light had some leeway, but it kind of balanced out because God or source has given us free will. So we, in theory, we kind of have to know our pros and cons here. Oh, I could go this way. I could go that way. The problem is the dark side took this and ran with it and pretty much never let it turn light, at least in any of our lifetimes that we would have seen. Okay. And so now God in his infinite wisdom and its infinite wisdom has decided we are going light forevermore. That's not just on this planet. This is throughout the entire universe, the multiverse. All the darkness is going away. And so what we have now are people on this planet that have been running this for a long time, not necessarily at the top. The people at the very top are gone. Okay, think of this as a pyramid. I know that's one of the symbols they love, right? So we'll use a pyramid as an example. And we started at the top, okay? And we start eliminating people. But the way the whole structure was set up, it was kind of like a military structure. You only know what you need to know in order to do your job. You don't know the whole plan. Only the person or beings at the very top knew everything. And so as you start to take people out from the top, what you find is the people towards the bottom, which is where we're at right now when we talk about world governments, they sit right above the people, the actual people that we're serving, that we're trying to help right now. It's kind of like the last line, the last stronghold, if you will. But just like a pyramid, there's a lot of people. You're at the base now, right? So there's a lot of people that think they're in charge because they didn't know how high the pyramid went. And when another layer gets taken out, they suddenly think that they're in charge and they're going to rule the world. And so you literally have a Game of Thrones type situation right now. Everybody, is trying to claim that they are the ruler of the entire planet. It's really weird. It's really crazy. And they're doing things normal people don't do. They are literally walking themselves off a cliff. And we're sitting here watching it happen because we are moving towards the light. We are focused on the restoration of our planet. And if you don't agree with that, then you're kind of on your own. And you have no funding to do the wars and the diseases and all the other things that they've been doing for a very, very long time on this planet. None of that is natural. None of it. And those are based on orders that they had received. So now the orders aren't coming down. They're running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And they're trying to make this whole one world government thing happen when in actuality, we've had a one world government for a very long time. It's just the people didn't know, We thought we hired or elected presidents and prime ministers. No, they were all selected for you. This is all an illusion of freedom. You don't have freedom on this planet. You were a slave. We were all slaves for a very long time. And now we are transitioning and becoming sovereign beings the way God and Source intended this whole system to be, okay? And the people that used to be our slave masters don't really like that. And they're trying their darndest to retain power. They are failing, and they will continue to fail because we are headed for a completely light system. So the latest on all of this is that, these people, they focus on alignments with the moon, fall equinoxes, all these different things, because in the past, that has brought them orders on what to do next. That has brought them contracts to be able to do the work, and that has brought them money, and a lot of it, to carry out the work. That no longer works. That system is no longer in place. Like I said, we are headed for restoration, and we are looking for people that want to move this planet forward, not cause harm for humanity and carry out all these evil deeds. So right now, they are on a very poor path, okay? They're trying to do things on their own. They don't want to work with us. They don't want to help the planet. They want to do all the stuff that they've been doing for many, many years. And it's just not working out in their favor. The latest is they realized that, evil and destruction wasn't going to work out, and they wanted to have more balance with us. So, we can't have a completely dark system. So, let's go back to that balance thing we were supposed to be doing for hundreds of thousands of years. Well, guys, it's too late. It's too late. We are now in a completely light system. We are not interested in doing balance with you anymore. You are incapable of balance. And now what we are about to see is something that's never happened on this planet. And that is what I was talking about before, the crash of federal governments. It is imminent. And we have talked about this before. But we are now at a time period where real big things are going to start to happen. And I don't know how the media is going to hide this because they are completely out of money. And they are not interested in working with us and getting money to restore the planet, which means they're broke. They're not going to get any money. No ETs are going to come down and hand them a paycheck. It's not happening. So the first soundbite that I want to play for the World Situation Report is, this is really happening, guys. Governments are crashing. And I wanted you to hear from Kim, from the Office of the Guardian, what exactly that looks like. Take a listen.
The governments are going to start heavily falling apart, major governments first, and that's going to start probably by later on today or tomorrow, which means that by January, February, after the holiday season, we will not have federal governments. That is a national government. On a national government level, the states will survive longer. The states do have some programs which are funded 50% federally and 50% locally, like your access and subsidized health care and those types of programs. So, there might be some issues with those programs coming up in the future. I don't know that for sure. We still have access to the FISERV system that we used before, so we can probably use that again if need be. But then again, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So I know the EBT cards are in there, which are your food stamp or food assistance cards are in there. And I know that Social Security is in there. I have not yet checked about any kind of retirement or anything in any other country. So that's on my list of things to do now that we know this is going to happen. If governments go, it won't be long until big corporates go, because you know how much corporate funding all the major airlines get from the governments, plural, all around the world. There are even governments that own airlines, the major airlines in the countries. So you're not going to need to be aware that if you're planning a trip, sometime next year, you're going to need to be aware that let's just hope they're still here, to take you where you want to go. If not, we're going to have to come up with something else, and we're going to have to talk to some sane people and try to see what we can do. You can probably also expect some of your favorite products to not be on the shelves anymore. You know how much money Heinz gets, how much money Johnson & Johnson gets, how much money, as far as I'm concerned, Russia's ahead of the game when everybody walked away, because they started manufacturing all their own products in-house now, and they'll still have chocolate, they'll still have shampoo, they'll still have all the things on the shelf that you've come to use and seen in stores worldwide.
Yep.
And you'll see the largest fall first. The ones that are always there with the lobbyists. If you go to DC, you'll see lobbyists for all of these major corporations, including Pfizer and Moderna and all the major drug manufacturers. They are all all in the right there in that whatever this ridiculous size bill that they're going to propose again this week.
Right.
So the world is going to be a changing place, and it starts now.
In the World Situation Report, we also talk about this being a time that a lot of people, myself included, have been waiting for. Some people have waited their whole lives. Some people have been awake their whole lives and known that this was one big matrix and have been dying to get out of it. And here we are. Here we are. The people that have had control over us forever are gone. And now these governments are folding. And now it is truly up to us. So one of the things that Kim and I talk about is, listen, it's go time. You have no one to blame now. You can't say you don't like such and such politician or Trump did this, Biden did this. They're all puppets anyway. It is now time for you to take back your own sovereignty. And if something needs to be done, don't just think that someone is going to come save you. That's a program. That is a savior program. Literally, the deep state has a program, a savior program. And a lot of times it's politicians, and sometimes it's a vaccine that's going to come save you, and sometimes it's a religion that's going to come save you. But the way that reality really works here is that you save yourself. That God, the infinite creator of all things, has given you the ability to save yourself. And humanity has yet to realize how powerful they truly are, because we have been in this nanny state situation for so long, and it's made us jaded. And we talk about that too. One of the things that I really hope comes out of this and humanity coming together is we drop those stupid labels. You know, oh, you're from this area of the world, so you're this, or you like the same sex, so you're this, or, you know, there's just so much that we do to keep ourselves from being as powerful as we possibly can be, because we are stronger together. We are super powerful just as human beings alone. That's why we were in this prison system here on Earth for so long, because we were very powerful, still are very powerful. We just don't know it. We have to relearn so much. And the thing that the deep state, the global deep state, is scared of the most is us finding out about our power. Because there's no stopping us then. There's absolutely no stopping us. But sometimes something big has to happen to shake everything up. And we have tried to work with governments in the past. I mean, Kim has done so much to see eye to eye with them, to get them to understand that they were being used as well by this whole system. But they are so focused on ego and power that they cannot see beyond that. So, okay, collapse, fall away. We're doing this with or without you, which leads me to the next little bit that Kim and I talk about is, hey, yay, you're sovereign. Now what?
I want everybody to really take a deep breath, because that means now you're all sovereign, which is yay. This is what everybody's trying to achieve. There's all these people on the internet that talk about, you know, I'm going to file this and this UCC filings and bonds and bills of exchange and all of this junk. You can just throw it out the window, because the governments are not going to help you be free. Mm-mm. I mean, in the old days, would any of us have gone to a slave master and said, I'd like to leave now, I'm done? No, they would kill you. Like, that's what would happen. And that's kind of what's been happening with governments, you know, worldwide, when you think about how they treat us, you know, how they treat our soldiers and all of us that work there. But it's going to come with some consequences. You know, and I've been telling you for months I'm concerned about this. You know, we're going to have to really step up, and I need all of you, because, you know, I'm not going to be all places at all times. I mean, I'm here to help as much as I can, but I'm not your savior. You're going to have to do this one yourself. Sovereignty and freedom comes with responsibility. That means you're going to have to take all of these things that you have yelled at other people for. I don't like this president. I don't like this government. Look at this new law, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to put all that burden right on your shoulders. And the only person you can blame is the one you see in the mirror for your success or your failure. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping, people will start to step up and realize what it is to be a leader. And I've talked about this several times. Being a leader means you are the support. You are at the bottom of the food chain. You are not the president. You are not. This is the reason why assemblies failed. Everybody wanted to be on top. The oppressed become the oppressor. And I saw it at assemblies worldwide. The United States probably being the worst. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen now that you're in a very real situation. Community watch programs are going to be something you probably need to consider, because we don't know what's going to happen. How long are the states going to survive, or provinces? Where is the police? And in every country, that could be a federal program. It might not be a state program like it is in the United States. Mm-hmm. You're going to need to come up with something for your community. And these things don't necessarily all cost money.
Yeah.
You're going to need to think about what soaps you use and what shampoos you use and what large companies you purchase from. We have electric companies. They get a lot of funding from governments, at least in the States, and in some countries they're owned by them. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do now? They can't do a worse job on the water. It wouldn't be sad to see the CIA water board. That's probably where they got the name waterboarding, I guess, from, because they are the water board in every state in the United States and actually throughout the world. They're also Customs and Borders Patrol. They are, the people that charge you to bring your stuff in and out of a country and say when you can and when you can't. They don't have any funding either. It's going to become a very real situation, and we're going to need to make some tough decisions. If we were going to pull, we meaning the UNN staff here and volunteers, if we were going to pull a boulder up a hill, I could be all by myself and I could start, with my back to the boulder and start pushing it up the hill, and maybe I'll get there and maybe I won't. But if we all tied ropes around the boulder, formed a net and started to pull all together, we're going to definitely get it up the hill. We're going to get it right to the top of the hill. It might take us a little while, but we'll get it up there together. So why does one person feel the need to do it all by themselves? When I say unity, meaning as a team, as a community, one person is going to bake the bread. The other person is going to, find the meat. I don't know, whatever it is that in your community that you do. But that's how we have lived for thousands of years as humans, until they made us more and more codependent on government and on big corporations. We can do this. You can do this. And everything you've ever wished for is here now.
So here we are. Here we are embarking on something that has never happened before on our planet, that the universe has never gone through. I mean, we are in uncharted territory, but I believe if God brings you to it, he'll bring you through it. And like Kim said, this is about us coming together. There is no one person that's, has the master plan here. It's us working in our communities alongside other people and taking care of each other. Think of all the people that have not heard what we're talking about on today's show. There are so many people that are still glued to mainstream media and even alternative media that think Trump is running the show secretly behind the scenes, saving babies, and he's going to come back and get back in office and save the day. This is what we're up against. That will never happen. So a lot of people are going to have to come to grips with what reality really is very quickly. And this is also not a time for those of us who do understand what's happening to shake our finger at them and say, I've been telling you this for years. Where's your bug out bag? That's not what we're doing here either. People need compassion. They need information, real news, right? That's why we're here. We're not going anywhere. I don't care if all the media falls apart. I guarantee UNN is not going anywhere. It is more likely that we are taking the place of all of those media outlets. Yeah, so no pressure on my head either. But that's why I'm here, you know? I truly believe that's why I'm on this planet at this time, doing what I do. And I'm happy to be doing this with all of you. I'm glad you guys decided to press play on today's episode. I encourage you now to go out there and do more research on your own community. What is your community going to need? Who else can you partner with? Are there other people in your community that understand what's happening? Who can you share this podcast episode with that might be a little bit more receptive to the information? Can you partner together with them? Keep asking questions. Think critically. Think about where we're going, not where we've been. Don't hold grudges. Don't go down that path. It's just a path of destruction. Think about the light. Think about moving forward and the world that you've always wanted, because now it's here. Now it's at your doorstep. And if you want more great information from us, you can check out unitednetwork.tv. All of our newscasts are there, complete world situation reports, original series, all that good stuff. If you want to connect with us, well, you do that on Telegram. We've got a couple different channels. The CARE General Updates channel, which has a bunch of information about restoration and the different shows that we put out. Also, United Network News channel. That's more for the Field Messenger reports, because you can watch those for free, as well as links to the newscast. And then if you want to become a Field Messenger, we have a UNN Field Messenger group where you can ask questions. So I will include links to all of that down below. I really appreciate you guys listening to today's show. Please share it with someone you care about. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.